There are many of our people who are thinking more deeply and more broadly, looking at it as it actually is, and are beginning to see it more in the international context and the relation that it has with the African struggle, a human rights struggle, or the struggle for human rights. And as such, we can then take it into the United Nations.
And bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
All right, guys, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. We are WCC, and by the way, what WCC mean, WCC just mean we charge colonialism. So we are a group of Pan-Africanists trying to send a petition to the United Nations against the United States of the continuing colonization of African people or black people into the United States, because the United States is a nation that sees herself as the champion of human rights. So they go into other countries and they preach about human rights. They talk about human rights. They advocate for human rights. But within the United States, there are a lot of work to be done here. So they are one of the human rights abuser in the world that also nation don't really see it, that what they are doing to black people in this country. So while they are also advocating for human rights, we will be inside in this country into the United States and take it then to UN, sending a petition to UN against the United States that they are colonizing black people within the United States. So by the way, anybody out there who have the passion of speaking, of doing this, and you think you are brave and you want to come out, join an organization. We charge colonialism, and we will show you the way how to go. So first of all, we want to define what colonialism is. And this definition is coming from one of our colleagues, African Esquire. So I took this from there, and this is what we're going to be doing, by the way. So whenever we come out to speak, we're going to try hard, by all means, to give the definition of colonialism, so that at least what we're talking about, you see the pattern of flow, the pattern of presentation, or the pattern of what we are going to present to you, so that you can see what we actually mean. So colonialism is a system of political governance or extension of territory by which one nation exercises her political power over another nation, territory, or people, maintaining the colonate and the state of dependent, and its inhabitants not having the same full right as those of the colonial power, and the controlling power is typically extended by the military force or threat of force. What it also means, colonialism also means the denial of one identity to self-determination, to be as people. The denial of one identity to self-determination, to be as a people. Now, so today's presentation it will be based on historical event and leading to present event. So basically, it's going to be about black history or black education. So following the abolition of slavery in 1865, new innovation were put in place. And when I say new innovation was put in place, those innovations that were put in place were not for African people or black people, or were not for enslaved African people. First of all, anyway, I will get to that. Was not for enslaved African people. It was for the benefit of the slaveholder and the benefit of the descendant of the slaveholder. Those benefits, those innovations that was put in place was not for the benefit of the enslaved African or the descendant of the enslaved African. It was for the benefit of the slave master or the slave holder and the benefit to the descendant of the slave holder. And those innovations that was put in place was to continue the political exploitation against African people or black people, social exploitation against African people or black people, economic exploitation against African people or black people, and the destruction of self-identity or self-determination of black people or African people. So, as we are putting together as we are putting together a petition to the United Nations of how the United States has continued the colonization of black people in America, in today's video, we will be looking at how the United States have denied the identity and self-determination of black people living in the United States by the denial of African history that will lead to our self-identity and our self-determination to be as a people, to be as African people. So, now, before slavery, Africans were in Africa. We were on our continent, minding our own business. We were on our continent, inviting people to come and trade with us. We were on our continent, inviting Europeans to come and trade with us, inviting Europeans, giving to them what we have, and we share with them, right? Now, so we were not slaves on the continent. So, you gotta get this correct. I don't like for people to misquote our history and then say we are descendant of slave. No, we are not descendant of slave. We are descendant of enslaved Africans. African that were brought in the diaspora, African that were brought in Europe and in America and enslaved. We are the descendant of those people, but we are not descendant of slaves. We were not slaves in Africa. We have our own continent, even up to 9. We still have our own continent. So we are enslaved Africans that were enslaved by Europeans or by Americans, so to speak. So we will be looking at that. Now, you gotta go by the history. When a European went to Africa, because the reason why I want to go back to history, I want you to see the patterns of flow. So when we talking about we charge colonialism, or when we talking about we are taking a petition to the United Nations against the United States, we want you to see how African people are being colonized when we talk about colonization. And in our definition here, we make it clear that colonialism is also the denial of one identity to self-determination, to be as a people. So now we will come to the issue because we are basing on the United States. But before that, I just want you to go back to the continent to get some historical facts, because you can't talk about colonialism without touching little bits on Africa. So now, when the Europeans came to Africa after they divided Africa among themselves, so what they did first of all, in order to colonize the people, in order to see them as inferior, and then they are superior, first of all, what they did was to deny the people their culture, to deny the people their language, their way of speaking, to deny the people the way they communicate, and to stay together as a people. Just common example, right? So now, when they brought the African in America here and enslaved them, what they did was they took the identity from them. And what that mean was African that spoke the same language. They separated them with other African that don't speak that or that speak different language. In our case, you will no longer be able to communicate with each other. So that was what they did. So for example, if you spoke Loma and I spoke Loma, they pour you with somebody who don't speak Loma, who speak Gil, or who speak Bandi, or who speak Mende. So in our case, you can't communicate, right? So what they did right there was to take away your identity. Because if we were bound together as people who spoke the same tribe, we were going to unite and form a group because it was going to be very easy for us to communicate and find a way out. So what they did, they separated us and they denied us basic education of ourselves. So by then separating us, they denying us basic education of ourselves because we will educate ourselves like how we did back home. We will get ourselves oral education, not on paper. That's how we learn in Africa, through oral education, where our forefather or our elderly people will sit with us and give us oral education, passed on to generation to generation to generation. They seen it was going to happen. So what they did, they separated us. And then we had churches where we had our meeting places. When they noticed that, what they did, they start coming into African churches and holding key positions, right? They start coming to African churches holding key position, and not only that, they brought it in a way as well that where churches will be able to get taxes. And when that came in, and once that came in, it gave some limitation of African people because now you'll be able to file, and get free money from the government. And that means the government had to control every aspect of your church. So churches were no longer a meeting places for us. But what am I driving at? America have continued her colonialism in a sense. Well, for example, we talk about political exploitations. If you are in politics into the United States here, they don't mind as a black person. You can get into politics, but you cannot speak for your people. You cannot empower your people. Nothing. You see it? So that's where the political exploitation is coming from. So you will find people of the other race, if they need black votes, they will find a black person to come into the black community to advocate for votes, that they will do this for black people by the time they get in power. But when they get in power, they no longer care for the promises they gave to us. That is political exploitation, because they use us to get black votes. But yet then when they get in power, the justice system still shoot down black people. You still see the police that's supposed to protect us still being gunned down. And those same people that came and asked us for our votes and we get our votes to them, do not protect us, do not talk for us. In fact, they protect the perpetrator against the victims. That's what we also mean when we say political exploitation. But we will also get into detail as more video come out. Okay? So, economic exploitation still continue. For example, during slavery, we can say today we have the prison industrial complex, right? But during slavery, we have the same plantation, the cotton plantation, and other plantation, right? But those plantations were owned by individual, was not owned by government, were owned by individual. And in the same way today, you still see the prison industry are being owned by individual companies. There are individual companies that monitor or that run this prison industry. So it is still a political, let's say, economic exploitation, Because they are still, because for example, during slavery, if you were a slave to a slaveholder and you escape from that plantation and you get caught, if they don't want to take you back to that plantation, they either sell you to another slave master, or they hang you to death, or they kill you, they burn you, or they beat you till you die for your life. In the same way today, since there is no more plantation, they brought a present industrial complex, not owned by government, owned by those same descendants of slaveholder. The same descendant of slaveholder own those present industrial complex. That is still plantation. And they are there making profit out of black people, out of African people. So for example, a white man will commit the same crime, but will not go to jail. But a black man will commit that same crime and go to jail. They put you there. For example, you only find, mostly you find police people in black neighborhood. We call it black hunting. And during slavery, that was what went on. Black hunting. If you find a black man walking on the street, they know you are not free. You are a slave. What are you doing walking on the street? So right there, they will know that you are a runaway slave from the plantation, or you run away from your master. And they will find a means to catch you, to take you back to your master, or to take you back to the plantation. It's the same way today. Police are hunting black people in black neighborhood. Once you leave this block, you go to the next block, you will see police. Car parking there. They're doing hunting. That's black hunting. And then when police pull you over, the first thing they will ask you, have you been to jail? Why would you just pull somebody over and assume that they've been to jail? Have you committed a crime? So automatically, they see us as violent people. They see us as people, somebody who have committed a crime. Meanwhile, you have not. But once they see you, you've been to jail. So it just means you've been on a plantation, because during slavery, if they catch you walking on the street, they know that you are not a free man. The first thing they ask you, did you run away from the plantation? So it's the same way when policemen pull you over today, when they pull a black man over today, the first question, have you been to jail? So it just means, have you been to the plantation? So if you are a slave that was walking and they ask you, have you been to the plantation? Or let's say, who your slave master, or which plantation you ran away from? Those are the questions that we ask. And then they take them right back. So today, we're just trying to educate black people in this country that it may not be called plantation today. It's called slave. It's called a prison. It's the same thing. It's just the same poo-poo, but different camo. It's just the same shit, but different camo. It might be nice camo, but it's the same shit. Different name, but the same attitude, the same system, the same behavior. So the descendant of slaveholder are still benefiting from what their slave, from what their forefather put in place. From what the slave master put in place, or the slaveholder put in place for them. They are still living a legacy today. So that is why they deny the teaching of black history in the United States here. Let's go back again to history. Most of you guys know Frederick Douglass. When Frederick Douglass, by the way, he was a free slave as well, living with his slave master. Now, when he was little, so when a slave master, you can read a book, The Life and Death of Frederick Douglass, and a few pages, I think about 100 pages. You can read it. When we give you these references, go and check it up. You can read it. Now, when his slave master goes to work and he lives in the house with the wife, and in his book, the slave master had a son. So the son would go to school and then come back. And then when the son come, and then the wife of the slave master or the slave holder will take the son book and start teaching Frederick Douglass. So many days, the slave holder or the slave master came and met the wife teaching Frederick Douglass. And he will call the wife. He will call the wife aside and say, what are you teaching the Negro? Do not teach the Negro boy. Because if you educate the Negro boy and the Negro boy become educated, the Negro boy will know that what we are doing is against humanity. What we are doing to him is against humanity. So do not educate the Negro boy. Do not educate the Negro man, because they will be smart and they will know that what they are doing, what we're doing to them is against humanity. It's the same way today the United States try to deny African history, because they know that if they teach African history, the same patterns of the continuation of slavery or the same pattern of the continuation of colonialism, we will get to know that colonialism is still existing in the United States against black people, and we will hold them accountable. So that is why they deny the teaching of African history into the United States educational system. In recent time, I think that was last year, October, on the 24th, last year, October 24th, 2019, in North Carolina, people voted against the teaching of black history in school. But they have the guts to teach other history that are not beneficial to black people. But it benefit the other race. It don't benefit black people because it make us look inferior. When we're talking about other people's history, how they dominated history, how they were this, but which of course is not even true. So it make us look inferior, it make them look superior, it make us look up to them for salvation. That is why black people always get a habit of asking for what? Justice. And we can't keep asking the same people for justice when they are doing injustice against us. So we have to wake up. So that is why this organization is about educating black people to become Pan-Africanists, to join us, to send a petition to the United Nations against the United States. Since she is a human rights advocate, advocating for human rights in other countries, and while human rights in this country are being abused, so maybe they're not seeing it. So saying we are here and we are seeing it, we have to bring that attention to the United Nations as well. And let them know that the United States seems to be a champion of human rights advocates. Therefore, these are the things that are going on within the country where black people are still being colonized. Because if you deny us of our identity and our self-determination to be as people, you are colonizing us. You are violating our rights to our history. For example, they lie to us. They bring us history that don't benefit us. For instance, the only speech you can hear about Dr. King is the dream speech. And that was not Dr. King's best speech. But because we don't know our history, they bring our history to us, making us look like a fool. Dr. King's best speech, go and check it up. April 4th, 1968. Go and check it on YouTube. These are references that this organization is giving to you to go check it up and see. Because we are not just here to give you knowledge that is not relevant. We are here to give you knowledge that is relevant. And you yourself can see it and compare and see how things look like. Dr. King's speech was not the best speech. And in That speech I just mentioned right now, April 4th, 1968. Go and listen to it. And see, he may not have said in his speech that it is his best speech, but go and listen to it. You will know that he's telling you that's his best speech. And in that speech, one thing he mentioned as well, he said, what we need is our freedom. And African people in the United States are not free. We are still being colonized by the United States. The fact that you deny us our right to our history and teach our history that make us look inferior and teach our history that don't empower us and teach our history that we don't see ourselves as people. We don't see our identity. We don't see ourselves being a self-determined people. Mean that we are still being colonized because that's how our people were treated. They denied our people education. They denied our people their right to know about themselves. They denied our people to communicate with one another. And that is why I have not seen a video, but the talk is out there. One FBI director, when they asked him, I think J.A. Hoover, when they asked him, what is the number one threat to the United States? And he said, Negro unity. Folks, these are references that we're giving you. So when you see the United States doing these things, it is because a system was put in place for the benefit of the descendant of the slave holder, for the benefit of the descendant of the slave master. So if a man can come out and say Negro unity is a threat, is the number one threat to the United States, you should know that no matter what we do to advocate for our history to be taught or to be a curriculum into the United States educational system, it's not going to work. So what we can do here is join our organization, We Charge Colonialism, and take a petition to the United States, to the United Nations against the United States. We love the United States. Don't get me wrong. We love the United States, but we hate what the United States is doing against African people or against black people. You have denied us our rights for so long. So it is time that we stop asking them for justice. It is time that we start marching to the White House. It is time that we stop marching to those senators. It is time that we stop marching to people who can no longer represent us. It is time to stop asking people to come into our community to host town hall meeting. It is enough, folks. It is time for us to say no when those people come to us for their political votes. Because our self-determination is not based on individual determinations. Where you see individual black, they are billionaire, they are millionaire, they got money and whatsoever. That's not black people. That's not African people. African people, our nature here, we are family. That's how we have been until the oppressor came and made us think that individual differences is the way to go. It's not a way to go. And that is why we are still divided. Because the United States has denied us the right of our history. The right of education. You might say we have the right to go to any school, to select any school. No. But what have been taught in those schools? Have you been to any college apart from HBCU? And you see a book written by a black man about black history? Maybe if you have read a book that is written by a black man, either that book has said something in it that make the black man to look inferior or not to empower the black man. And you will see those kind of books out there. And those books have been approved by the system because they read it and see to it that it is not a book that will actually empower black people. It is not a book that will actually give the identity of black people. It is not a book that will give self-determinations of black people. If you see a book like that, it will never be taught into the United States educational system. And this is where we want to hold the United States accountable and take them to the UN. You can't continue to oppress one person over and over. You change our name. You can't continue to suppress our history. We have the right to education. We have the right to our history. We have the right for our history to be taught. It is part of the American history. If you are teaching American history and you leave black history out, that's not American history. Once you leave black history out, then America do not have a history. Because without black history, America have no history. So this is why we are coming together as Pan-Africanists with the organization called We Charge Colonialism to take a petition to the United States. By you loving somebody doesn't mean you cannot put that person on track. We love the United States. So if the United States is acting as a champion of human rights, and we see to us that the United States is making mistake in her advocacy as a human rights nation, we have to also come out to petition the United States. To send a petition to the United Nations against the United States. That, okay, she says she is acting as a champion of a human right. But these are the things that are happening within the United States. So if we can talk about it, UN will sit and look. So why would the United States take petition against other countries, against other nations, against other people to UN? And UN look at it and then put sanction on those countries. So it is the same way we ourselves as a people need to petition the United Nations against America. That doesn't mean we hate America, but we're trying to make America to do the right thing. So folks, John, we charge colonialism as a Pan-Africanist, and let's take on this obligation. Thanks.